Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go.
Oops. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Wednesday, September 25th, 2024, as in, oops, I did it again. Not sure I'd ever have Britney Spears as the word of the day, but that's where we find ourselves as the Houston Astros have clinched their division again. They've won the AL West 4 straight years. They've won it 7 out of the past 8. They are going for their 8th straight ALCS. Just want to make sure that we take a minute and understand the absolute dominance of the Houston Astros. There have been so many debates about buzzers and garbage cans. They've gone, think about what happened to them this year. They overpaid Jose Abreu. They designated him. Tucker was hurt for half the season. Verlander stinks. Javier, Urquidy, Tommy John, see you later. They have a pitcher whose name rhymes with what you may have had for dinner the night before a marathon. And here they are continuing this run. Pondering, as I do this time of year, all of the champagne celebrations that lead into October and watching the clinches and thinking about how the front offices are focused during a postseason clinch on getting all of their advanced scouting together, making sure they're getting ready for the playoffs, what the sales team is doing, getting the stadium sold out, the marketing team working with MLB. You know, every single playoff team or almost playoff team has to prepare a postseason manual for Major League Baseball, all the way up to and including where you will host World Series parties, hotels for sponsors, hotels for players during the playoffs, get all the ticket prices approved by Major League Baseball. There is so much that happens. For teams that do it every year, you sort of whip out the old manual, change the date. We would do a manual because we were in the race more years than we weren't. Change the date, do a few new things. Once in a while, you need all pages of the manual. The Astros have needed it year after year. The irony of the Astros' dominance is the last team that was this dominant in the AL West. Yes, of course, the Oakland A's. The Oakland A's won 5 times in a row in the 70s, early 70s. And the Oakland A's started their last series against the Texas Rangers. They walked off the Rangers last night. Our segment, Coca, yesterday got quite a bit of attention on our discussion of John Fisher's letter. And I was thinking all things A's. I've had a lot of time. There's so much baseball in my head right now, both good and bad. And there was a notification or a tweet or someone told a story that the Texas Rangers had a meeting as the road team with security over the end of the A's in Oakland. And people were saying, is that real? And I wanted to tell you a quick story that, yes, it's real because I had that meeting. When I was with the Marlins, if you go back, I don't know the year, Coca. I'm guessing 04, but it could have been 05, but I think it was 04. The last game in Montreal at Olympic Stadium was against the Marlins. And before that series, we also had a meeting with MLB security and with our own security. It turns out we needed it because Expos fans were throwing batteries on the field the last game, and we pulled our team off as you may recall. And the reason you have those meetings is that there's a thought. When was it? September 29th, 2004. And we won that game 9-1, 31,000 people. Well, I was one of them, although I don't think I counted as paid attendance, although I would have counted myself 1,000 times. So the security meeting is the following. It is all about ingress and egress to the ballpark. There are team buses that go from a hotel when you're on the road, but players often take cabs. Some players even take the subway in Montreal or in New York or other places where there's public transportation. Other players have their own cars, drivers. Sometimes family is there and drops them off, whatever the case may be. It was suggested to us that we take the team bus. After the game, everyone's on the team bus because it goes right to Dorval, which I think is now called Trudeau Airport in Montreal. But we were told, come together, go together, and don't dilly-dally on the field or in the dugout. And the thought was that there would be frustration and anger, especially with the crossover of ownership, with me having been with the Expos and now with the Marlins at that time. And in Oakland, we saw pictures last night of people ripping out seats from the Coliseum. And I would only encourage fans, I know, I get it, the anger and frustration that is being felt in Oakland right now. I would say that you should manifest that with cleverness, manifest that with chance, however you want, but there is no reason in any way to endanger yourselves, the other fans, the players. It just doesn't make sense. It is not a good look, and it's also a crime, and it's also not safe. So I am all in for all of the peaceful protests that have been going on, for all of the nonviolent protests, for all of the anger, and I call out to the Last Dive Bar, call out to all of the people in the news organizations. I did a news show last night, Coca, in San Francisco, KRON, and there is palpable upset. I hope that upset turns into an expansion team at some point, though the irony would be, of course, if the A's move back to Oakland after Sacramento because Vegas doesn't happen. But in any case, there's 2 more days left of games this season for Oakland, and they will then go home, along with the majority of baseball teams, one of whom is the White Sox. I was all ready, Coca. I had a whole segment ready to roll. I guess I'll wait for tomorrow. The segment is when they lose their 121st game. Somehow they won a game last night, losing late, their first time this season winning a game after being down after 7 innings. They're 194. So we'll wait till tomorrow on that. Way to go, White Sox. You're still at 120. Let's talk about the Padres, though, because they're HOT. And I get accused of being anti-Padres, and don't misunderstand me. I'm anti-Preller. I'm anti their GM. Do I root against the Padres? You bet your bippy. But do I recognize when there is a good team that is playing well, that is 2 games back of the Dodgers, and that's it, with 2 more to play against them this week? The Padres ended the game with a triple play. I'd never seen that, but I read that had happened not that long ago, which was strange to me because I have no recollection of a game-ending triple play, especially, although this one seemed more important. The Padres were up 2 men on, obviously, otherwise you can't get a triple play. Although you can get a triple play with the bases loaded, I guess, just not with 1 man on. And Ohtani was on deck, and they turned it. What's the best way to turn a triple play with a man on first and second? Yeah, it's got to be a sharp ground ball right to the third baseman who happens to be on the bag. So the Padres have put themselves in a position. They're no longer fighting for a playoff spot, obviously. They are actually trying to win the division. And the irony of Ohtani and the Dodgers being a wild card team is not lost on me, because guess what? There are networks that have 4 letters that are rooting for that. See if you can follow that train of thought. If the Dodgers win the division, they will get a bye. If they're in the wild card, they'll have to play starting next Tuesday. And the network showing the wild card series, which is a new series wholly invented for the fans, wink, wink, wholly invented for broadcasters to give money to baseball. Why not? More playoff games, the better. But if the Padres can finish this comeback, it would be an absolute Snoopy dance by the networks and by baseball, only if they win that 2 out of 3 series. The ultimate nightmare is Ohtani not winning the division and then losing in the 2 out of 3 series. What else did I watch last night? I watched the Tigers. I'm going to get it wrong. Clase is not going to win the Cy Young, but the wait to see that I had is not in effect. Coke and I had an argument about this yesterday. He said it was a wimpy, bullshit wait to see, and I get it. There were so many caveats, but if you recall from maybe a week ago, I said, if Skubal has a bad start and Clase doesn't blow another save, he could win the Cy Young. Well, Skubal doesn't have bad starts. He's 18-4 with the 2.39. He will be the unanimous Cy Young winner, though I would throw a first-place vote to Clase if I could, of the Guardians. The Tigers are going to make the playoffs, which is going to give me a whole nother wait to see wrong, where I said there'd be no changes in September. I just cannot believe how good they've been with players that nobody's heard of, but you will come a week from now. Quite impressive. The question is, can the Mariners sneak in and keep my World Series pick preseason alive? They're only, I think, a game and a half back. The Royals finally ended their 7-game losing streak, but there really is an opportunity for the Mariners to do it. I just don't know if they can. The last thing I want to mention, and I save it for last because I love Vanessa Williams, is that the Mets went into this 3-game series. We previewed it for you, told you that whoever wins 2 out of 3 will have won the season series. It'll be like winning an extra game. Chris Sale, the Cy Young winner in the National League this year, is pitching tonight for the Braves. And when you're the Mets and you know that you've got to win 2 out of 3, and you're facing Chris Sale in one of the 3, that makes the other 2 must-wins, which made last night a must-win. Severino could not command his slider at all if you watch the Mets game. And he was the Severino that Yankee fans sort of recognize, maybe. But the Mets just got walloped, and the Braves have to feel good about themselves. But maybe the Mets can too, because the Diamondbacks keep losing, which of course would eliminate the reigning National League champions. All of this is happening, and we are on Wednesday, and the season ends Sunday. It is an absolute dream right now for baseball. It is going to be awfully exciting, and I'm here for it. One of the things that happens to me on September 25th, just give me 120 seconds, if you don't mind, is that today is 8 years since Jose Fernandez died in a boating accident. It happened on September 25th, 2016. And every September 25th, I cannot help but go over the events of that day, the events of the week prior. I think about Jose's last start, which was the previous Tuesday, which meant that his next start should have been Sunday. Some of you may not know the story, but some of you do. But I try to tell the story each year, hoping that one year it'll feel better. One year I won't completely be devastated by decisions made, which were to delay Jose's start by a day, therefore enabling him to go out Saturday night, the night in which he passed away in that boating accident. If he were starting, he would have been in bed in the fetal position, sucking his thumb, getting ready to dominate. Instead, we listened to Scott Boras, who made us delay his start because we had violated his pitch count that we had agreed to in his return from Tommy John. Maybe that's why I don't like giving power to agents, or why I talk about Boras the way I do, though all of his actions before that day and since that day certainly bolster my case. But the one thing about Jose's passing is that it also marks the age of his daughter, since his wonderful and amazing fiance Maria was pregnant with his daughter and their daughter Penelope, who this February will turn 8. And she's a superstar. The thing about death that I've been thinking about, and I think I have 1 more minute, 10 more seconds to go, is that we don't forget. We continue people's legacy. We talk about them. We think about them. But the one thing you can't do is change anything. You can't change what you did for someone when they were alive. You can't wish that you had done something differently or think about it after they're gone. The best thing you can do is be better when people are alive. Being better is it's talking about yourself and how you react and interact with people. It's being better with your core values, being strong, being sure of yourself, being willing to be wrong and accountable. So many things we can do. It's so much more important when people are alive versus after they have passed away. And I don't regret any of the moments that I shared with Jose over the many years I was with him, or I just regret that I did not help that last week. Okay. Let's move on to I can't even. This is what we're going to move on to show the fact that I can't win a nothing personal pick of the day. I was so hot. I feel like I'm getting so close to 500, getting back to even. I'm running out of time. I only have till December 31st. I'm back to 6 games under. Who thought the Dodgers would lose to the Padres? Give me a break. That's a loss. And the Twins, I am loyal. Maybe to a fault. Not everyone would agree with that statement. We had the Twins over the Marlins, and the Twins can't win a game. Why would I not realize that the Twins cannot win a game? And their fold and their collapse is going to be complete. It's absurd. You know what's weird, Coca? This is a live show. What's weird is that while I was just talking about Jose, I got a text from Maria. Is that weird? I don't know. I doubt she's watching it live, only because I know that she's so busy working, because she has to work, because Boris would not allow Jose to sign a contract that would have set up his family for life, taking care of a daughter, getting her ready for school. So I don't think she's listening, but she texted right at that moment. That was strange, Coca. Nothing personal pick of the day. I'm never taking the Twins again, mark my words. And you can mark it today. I'm not taking them tonight. I'm not taking them if they make the playoffs. I am not taking the Twins again. I love you, Dave St. Peter. You know I do. I just told you that within a week. But you can't lose to the Marlins, who are just delaying losing a hundo. It's going to happen, but you got to win those games. Tonight, another must win and a huge favorite. And if Zach Gallen cannot win for the Diamondbacks, they do not deserve to try to defend their title. We are 128 and 134, and we are taking Zach Gallen and the Diamondbacks over the Giants. Which brings me to the story that many of you thought I would lead with, and I am super excited to talk about it because of the following.
You know what I want? I want to talk to Samson.
So you want to talk to Samson. I never had a doubt that Pittsburgh was a good market for us. We had a great live show there. I don't remember when, in April, on our next tour. I want to get back to Pittsburgh. I love Pittsburgh. I know that we have a following. It's fantastic. But this topic on Rowdy Tellez has been a topic that generated the most questions of anything that's happened in the past. It's got to be the past year. So many of you, but I only could take one of the questions. They were all the same topic, but here it is. Hi, David. Rowdy Tellez was DFA'd today, and many people are citing a 425 PA threshold that would trigger a $200,000 bonus as the reason. I'm seeing a lot of negative comments from the Pirates fan base over this, with many people saying this will deter future free agents from signing with the team. I think the move makes perfect financial sense. What say you? Well, before I say what say me, let me tell you what Derek Shelton, the manager of the Pirates, said, and I am hoping and praying that his fingers were crossed or toes were crossed. He was staring away from the people he was talking to, and he was MFing both Ben Cherington and Bob Nutting. But Derek Shelton said about the designation, the DFA of Tellez, it did not factor into the decision at all. It came down to when the minor league season ended and these guys getting here. That's what factored into the decision the most. What he's referring to, and the questioner was exactly right, if there were 4 more plate appearances by Rowdy, that would be $200,000 check that would have to be paid by the Pirates to the player. First, Derek Shelton said it didn't factor at all. Then he said what it was the minor league season that ended. That's what factored in the decision the most, which means if it's not the only thing that factored and it only was the most influential factor, that means there was something else that factored. But guess what? His entire statement is horse hockey. Do you know what factored into designating him? They didn't want to pay him the $200,000. And here's the craziest part. Ben Cherington and the rest of the Pirates front office, I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to turn over a new leaf. It is malpractice that they waited this long to designate him. I, of course, would not have let him get to 425 plate appearances. And there is nothing wrong with that. It's not a violation of the CBA. When a contract is signed that has performance incentives, it is known by the player, it is known by the team, it is known by the union and by the league that the team ultimately controls whether or not that player hits those incentives. If a player is playing great, there's opportunity for grievance. If you get rid of a player, not trade, if you release a player very close to an incentive and there is no particular thing that you can hang your hat on except purposefully making it so that player doesn't hit the incentive, then you're stupid as a team. The fact that the Pirates are open and subject to a grievance is because they didn't release him earlier this month. He has not had a good month. They will argue that his play did not warrant him getting another at-bat. They can argue they needed the roster spot. The bottom line is they waited too long, and now it makes it look sus. The Major League Baseball Players Association is most certainly going to file a grievance. As a matter of fact, I will even put it as a wait to see, an official wait to see, Coca. When we tell you something's going to happen, if it does, we'll remind you. If it doesn't, we'll revisit it because we're accountable. MLBPA will file a grievance in the DFA of Rowdy Tellez. I don't think they will win the grievance, but they will certainly file it. How many times do we talk to our people, both in owners' meetings and in front office meetings, about being ahead of decisions in order to avoid any sort of grievance or any sort of loss in a grievance or any sort of forced settlement? You know that I carried around my black briefcase every day that had in it the payroll. It had in it contracts of the players, what all their incentives were, what their thresholds were, service time, all the things that we would manipulate and need to manipulate in order to run the business soundly. Of course, the Pirates were aware of it. DFAing him with 4 PAs left. It's almost impossible to believe. This whole month, he's been so bad. He's hitting like a $116. He gets on base 25% of the time. There would have been reason to move on from it. It's not like the Pirates have been in the playoff race and he was the difference maker. There is no team in the playoffs who then releases a guy because he's about to hit a threshold and that guy's a productive player. But if a guy's going to hit a threshold for a team that's not in the playoffs or a guy that's not going to be on the roster and he's not performing, You Dixie him way in advance of the threshold. It's mind-boggling to me. Now, the second part of your question is whether it will deter free agents from signing there. Absolutely not. Do you know what will deter free agents from signing in Pittsburgh? The fact that Pittsburgh doesn't offer free agents top dollar. That's all. But everyone who does sign there signs there because the Pirates offered the most money. I will repeat this. We're 5 years old as a show. Soon, in a couple weeks. I'll repeat this for the next 20 years. There is nothing a fan base can do. There's nothing a front office can do. There's nothing a stadium location can do. There's nothing a crappy clubhouse can do that deters a free agent in baseball from signing if that team offers the most money. Never seen it. Never will see it. We'll see it. Don't believe the hometown discount crap. Don't believe, oh, this is where I want it to be. I love it here so much. And I don't blame players for that. I agree with that. That's what we all do when we're free agents. You have a limited amount of time to make the money you make. You have to make the most money you can. Oh, this team stinks. I'm not going to sign. They DFA'd Rowdy. I'm not going there. That'd be absurd. Thank you for your question. If you have a question for me, go to davidsamsonpodcast.com or go to go to David P. Samson on Twitter. I've been up all night, Coca, again. I had one of those bad nights. I don't like September 25th generally, and my brain, when I try to go to bed, is thinking about it and going through, obviously, everything I did. And, of course, it makes my eyes open. So I had actually an interesting night of content watching, which I'll review stuff over the coming week. But that's why my throat is a little froggy today. But my eyes are open. All right, let's go to break. When we come back, I watched this movie 2 days ago. I'm going to review a movie when we come back. And then I want to talk about something that happened at UNLV last night that nobody should be surprised about. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Thank you. We just got our numbers from last week. We're heading into the end of September. I expect that September will be another month where we break a record, and that is all because of you. Keep telling your friends about the show. Keep watching the great video work that's being done by Coca and Sarah on YouTube. We have our channel, Nothing Personal with David Samson, where you may be watching right now live. If you're on DraftKings Network, thank you for doing that. 10 o'clock is the lead into Le Batard. Let's talk about a movie called His Three Daughters. It's a talkie. It's got Natasha Lyonne, Elizabeth Olsen, and Carrie Coonan, and it's about three sisters who are in an apartment in New York City waiting for their father to die. And they're trying to figure out all of their traumas and trying to understand each other. It is a movie that basically looks like a play and that it takes place in one apartment. You would think to yourself that this is going to bore me to tears or depress me or make me despondent beyond repair until you realize it's brilliantly written, and the acting by these three actresses, it's amongst the best three performances I've seen, and certainly in the top three ensemble cast performances I've seen so far this year. If you don't like slow, you may not like it, but if you like quality, then His Three Daughters will appeal to you. And certainly, I've never seen a movie that is more true to form. When my dad died, there was, although I had COVID, so this was in 21, there was a lot of things with the siblings, a lot of conversations that had to be had. And I have never seen a movie that reflects in a truer sense through its dialogue what is going on when there is a circle of life event. It's called His Three Daughters. Raise your hand, please, if you remember what we talked about with NILs. Remember we talked about it's college free agency? You wanted it, you got it. You want your players to be employees? They're employees. You want them to get paid? Fine, they're getting paid. Why is the transfer portal so nutty? Why is recruiting so different? And why, if you have a kid who plays high school football, all of a sudden everything's different now, or high school basketball, the way you're being recruited, what spots there are on different teams. There has been a trickle down impact of NIL. And whether you're in favor or not, and I told you where I am, I'm more than happy for players to get paid, but do me a favor and don't turn your head and put it in the sand when all the things that come with money happen. UNLV has a quarterback named Matt Sluka, and he walked out on his football team yesterday. He's the starting quarterback. UNLV is 3-0. Remember 2 weeks ago when they upset Kansas? He said to himself, I'm done. He literally walked away. He is going to redshirt himself, because you can still do that even if you've played for a smidgen in a particular season, but it doesn't matter what the rules are. He quit. Why would a player quit on his team? Let's think of some reasons. In the old days, focus on school. Yeah, that one doesn't happen too often. What else? Tragedy in the family. That can happen. People walk away for that. They can't allocate the time. Why else would you walk away? Because you want to move schools. Better school academically, better school athletically. That's a good one. Get hurt. Don't want to get 1,000 concussions. Don't want to have a higher likelihood of getting Parkinson's. All those things are possible. But guess what? We have a new one now. How about a contract breach? Wait a minute. What contract breach? There's no contracts in college football. Yes, there are. Matt Sluka quit because he didn't get the NIL money that he thought he was getting. And he said it. I committed to UNLV, and this is a quote, based on certain representations that were made to me, which were not upheld after I enrolled. Despite discussions, it became clear that these commitments would not be fulfilled in the future. I wish my teammates the best of luck this season and hope for the continued success of the program. Ridiculous 2 throwaway lines. You obviously don't care about your teammates, so you wouldn't have walked away as the starting quarterback. You just transferred to UNLV. Wait a minute. He started 4 years. He played 4 years at Holy Cross. He transferred to UNLV. Do you think there's a chance that he transferred because he was promised money, NIL, in the portal? I wonder if that's possible. And is it true that when he got to UNLV, they decided, we don't have the money, we're not going to pay you, we're going to reallocate it? Do you think there's a written contract between the player and the collective, or between the player and the school? Do you think there's a paper trail anywhere? Because if there is, you can bet your bippy there's going to be a lawsuit. How amazing that now the trickle down of NIL has resulted in the very real possibility of a breach of contract lawsuit. Breach of contract lawsuits happen every day. It's a Tuesday. You said you'd do X, and you didn't do it. It's written right here. Now, don't give me any of this oral stuff. A written contract. Do you think that Matt had a written contract? And if so, why would UNLV not fulfill its obligations under the contract? Or worse yet, was it not written? Was it just a promise? Hey, you come here, I promise to pay you. I swear to God, cross my heart and hope to die that I will pay. Just kidding. Do you think that if you really want to protect college athletes the way all of these talking heads talk about, then why not? If you're going to be an employee, let's not do at will. Let's do employment contracts. Let's do full contracts where the consideration is you come play for us and we pay you this amount of money. Then there's really no discussion. Then we start negotiating the guarantee clauses of the contracts. Is this sounding familiar? It sounds a little bit like professional sports, because now the college players are professional athletes. If you didn't want that, then why'd you go down the path of paying the players? If you did want it, then clearly you have to be okay with everything Matt Sluka is doing. You have to be okay with all the business that will now be with NIL, which is the formation of collectives, which is the fraud, which is the contracts, which is the breach, which is the lawsuits, which is the fighting. I thought people watch college football because they want to gamble and they want to feel for their school, the alma mater, and they love the purity. Turns out there's nothing pure about it. Forget the fact that it's such a huge business, maybe the second biggest business in all of sports, college football, behind the NFL. But did any of you think for 1 minute that there wouldn't be a story like this? I think you should be despondent, personally. But he wishes his teammates good luck. Thank heavens for that. What's your view about getting paid for something that you did many years ago, except you didn't get paid when you did it, and now you go back to the person and say, hey, give me my money? Reggie Bush, the Heisman Trophy winner. Remember, he lost his Heisman Trophy because he had done some illegal stuff, which was hardly a big deal, and he just got it reinstated just in April, like a couple months ago. We covered it on the show. Well, Reggie Bush woke up one day, answered the phone, and it was a lawyer, and the lawyer said, I've got a great idea, Reggie. Trust me, you're going to love this. We're going to sue to get NIL money. Well, what does that mean? Hear me out, Reggie. We're going to sue the NCAA. We're going to sue USC, and we're going to sue the Pac-12. And here's the cause of action. We're going to seek compensation, otherwise known as back pay, because they used your name, image, and likeness when you were with the program. So we're going to say that they all made a ton of money off you. You were such a big star when you were with USC. They had TV contracts and they sold merchandise and they did all the things using you. And now we're going to say, I should have gotten paid. So we're going to go for back pay. What do y'all think? Think there's a chance? I've been thinking a lot about this, a lot. There's so many different parts of it. Let's start with the easy one. The year is 2025. What is the year? Sorry, 2024, 4/8/69. The year is 2024. Go back to 2010. What were you doing 14 years ago? Just if you had a guess, what was your job? I was with the Marlins in 2010. So I'm going to use me as the example here. Can you imagine if I went back to the current owner of the Marlins, Bruce Sherman, and I said, hey, Bruce, I would like to get paid more money than I got paid in 2010, because I feel as though that the team really took advantage of me that year as we were getting a new stadium, and I don't feel like I was compensated properly. And by the way, I was in the team program, I was in the media guide, and I was on the Jumbotron. What would be your view of that? I assume you'd say, David, that's ridiculous. You were paid for the work you did when you did it. You can't go back and get more pay. If you're an employee who works for a regular company, not a sports team, do you think that you can go back to your boss and say, I know I've been here 8 years, but going back to that raise I got between year 7 and year 6, I don't feel like that was enough. I'd like to get more money now because I deserved more back then. How would that go? You think you'd win that? What about going back to your old paper route, or when you worked for your dad for free in 8th grade during the summer? Think you should go back and be able to collect because you didn't get paid and say you took advantage of me? For all of you who've been interns, unpaid interns, and you did a ton of work for companies when you were an unpaid intern, do you think that you should be able to go back and say, listen, I did such good work, pay me? What were you doing then? There is no legal principle that I have been able to come up with that will allow for Reggie Bush to go back in time to get paid for his NIL rights. The lawyer even came this close to saying that. Listen to this statement by the lawyer, Evan Selleck. This case, this is a quote. It's incredible. This case is not just about seeking justice for Reggie Bush. It's about setting a precedent for the fair treatment of all college athletes. Our goal is to rectify this injustice and pave the way for a system where athletes are rightfully recognized, compensated, and treated fairly for their contributions. I wish we had some music we could play in the background because that's so amazing. And now the lawyers for the NCAA and USC and the Pac-12, they must be shivering in their boots. They must be worried when they file a brief. Do they have to actually put more in the response than just the quote from the lawyer? The lawyer is acknowledging, hey, we're trying to use Reggie Bush here as the conduit. We recognize that's a little dicey, but it would be really amazing if you give Reggie some money because then it can open the floodgates for everybody. And believe me, these lawsuits have been filed. There's guys, the Connecticut teams. I can't remember who are the Connecticut guys. There was the former NBA players involved in a lawsuit right now, Coca, all trying to get like back pay for NIL. It is absolutely impossible to believe that they will even get $1. You think the courts are going to make it so that everybody who ever played, everybody is going to start getting money? What is this, like the concussion settlement? Do you know that there are players today who will make more money in a year than Hall of Famers made in their career? Why is that? Because life changes, times change, salary caps change, revenue changes, rules change. Every time a rule changes, I've got a really good one for you. I'm an NBA player from the 60s, and I'm going back to my shot chart, and I'm going to the Hall of Fame, and I'm saying, excuse me, I'd like you to add 2,000 points to my career total because those were all three-point shots I hit. Well, excuse me, there was no three-point line back then. I know, but there is now. And I believe I should get credit as though I hit 3 points. By the way, when it was 3 to make 2 from the free throw line, but I then only had 2 shots, and if I missed one of 2, I want to go to the free throw line. You can bring a camera, and I want to shoot more free throws for each time I was fouled because then I'll have more career points. It's so ridiculous. How about when the tax laws change? Retroactive to 2023, and you say to the IRS, listen, I took a deduction. I'm sorry you audited me. I took the same deduction I'm allowed now. I took it back for all of the previous years. I'm refiling. And they would say, what are you talking about? That wasn't the law then. That wasn't the rule then. Yeah, but it's the rule now. So of course I get to take advantage of this new rule today for yesterday and the year before and the year before. I don't know that I can give you more horse hockey than that. Maybe. Good luck, Reggie. Here's a word of free advice from Nothing Personal in the law firm of Samson and Coca. Get a different lawyer. There's another big lawsuit going on. The Pac-12. They're getting sued and they're suing. I love that. That's what I always like to do. I like to sue, be sued. I just want to be in the action. Keep lawyers employed, my brethren. The Pac-12 announced the lawsuit. They're suing the Mountain West Conference. This is a good one. The Pac-2, remember they became the Pac-2, and then they poached the entire Mountain West Conference, and they were going to become the Pac-6, and now they want to become the Pac-8 so they can become a super conference and get access to the CFP. Covered it on Nothing Personal. Well, we also covered the fact that the Pac-12 had to pay a lot of money to the Mountain West Conference to poach those teams. They had to pay part of the exit fees that the teams had agreed to pay if they would ever leave the Mountain West Conference. And then we told you about a silly thing, a scheduling contract that was done, where the Mountain West agreed to schedule games with the Pac-2, and the Pac-2 had to pay them. It's normal. I mean, we've seen this year alone, Coca, it feels like way more than ever when you're paying opponents to come, they're kicking your ass on game day. Not ideal. So the Pac-12 has decided that they do not appreciate the poaching penalty that they have to pay Mountain West as part of this scheduling agreement. They totally understand that Mountain West teams, if they're going to leave, have to pay exit fees. They're good with that. But they say that this poaching penalty that you're doing, that's going to cost us like $50 million, we're not paying it. And their view is that it's unlawful because it restrains trade. It locks in schools from leaving for a competitor. The damages are excessive and unreasonable. What's interesting is that a court would look at that and say, excuse me, Mr. Pac-12, when you did the scheduling agreement with Mountain West Conference, you know you did that, right? You were there when you signed that agreement that called for what the penalties would be. It was right there because the Mountain West contemplated the fact that the Pac-2 could be poaching and they were logical candidates to be poached. Do you have any recollection of that? Well, yes, Your Honor, but I'm telling you, I didn't realize it would be this much money. Really? Try again. Well, Your Honor, yes, I was there, but I didn't realize that we would be taking 4 teams. Really? Try again. Well, Your Honor, I just realized that it's just too much money. Sorry, man. Park's closed. Can't help you. One thing the law tries not to do, maybe it should, maybe that's the way we could change the law, is to save people from being stupid. The law does help you when you're tricked. The law helps you when you're wronged. But I don't believe the law does, nor should it, and I'm a firm believer in this. It is very hard to protect people from their own idiocy. If the Pac-12 could not realize when they signed this scheduling agreement, if they did not have the foresight to understand that they wanted to get back to Pac-6, the whole point of contracts is that your lawyer is supposed to tell you all the possible pitfalls and outcomes that you know will never happen, but their job is to protect you in the crazy instance that they would. This is not one of those cases. This is not an unforeseen, unintended consequence of a contract or of a relationship. This is not a, oh my God, it's force majeure. Who would have thought it? The Pac-2 was the Pac-2. That's why they needed the scheduling agreement, because they needed games. Every lawyer would have said, hey, this is what you're signing. These are going to be the damages if you want these Mountain West Conference teams. Are you in or are you out? The Pac-12 said, we're in. And now they're saying, we're out. You don't get to do that. So now there's going to be an entire lawsuit about this. And it's going to waste resources. It's going to waste time. And there is very little opportunity for the Pac-12 to win, which means what the Pac-12 is likely doing is trying to schedule and negotiate a different payment plan than that which was agreed to. They're trying to negotiate maybe a settlement. I'm not sure if I'm Mountain West Conference that I would do anything other than what Gloria Nevarez said. She's the commissioner of Mountain West and said to say that the Mountain West was taking advantage of the Pac-12 could not be farther from the truth. The Mountain West wanted to help the Pac-12 schools and student athletes, but not at the expense of the Mountain West. The Pac-12 has taken advantage of our willingness to help them. Now that they've carried out their plan to recruit our schools, they want to walk back what they legally agreed to. There has to be a consequence to these types of actions. It's a brilliant response to a lawsuit. And you know that I can be critical of statements. The only thing that was missing from the end of Gloria Nevarez's statement about this ridiculous lawsuit should have simply been, it's just business. Pay me my money. This is nothing personal.